Hello, everybody. So, the other night we kind of walked through a full example, and I have a couple things to talk about. We might do one more step on that example, be useful for projects. I guess first off, remember the exam, midterm exam is this week, and exams are on a calendar schedule. So you only have until Saturday at 11:59 p.m. to do the exam. It's a debugging assignment. There's a job, get some Java code and just fix the errors. We'll probably copy that Java code over into a new project so you can run it and fix everything. And remember to make a list of all the errors you fix. Should be straightforward on that. If you have any trouble, let me know. I do not accept late exam submissions. So please remember that it's due Saturday. There's still quite a bit of past homework I haven't received, or like bits and pieces of things. So that got me started thinking about the format for the class, because this is the first time I've run this class in 8 weeks. This was the very last class that we here at Southern Program we switched to from 16 weeks to 8 weeks for school ID. So this is the first time it's run here. I've taught it in 8 weeks. And and I will continue that as soon as this microphone picks up. There it is. Yeah, so right before you came in, I was just saying there's quite a bit of past due homework that I haven't received yet. And this is the first time that this course is run in 8 weeks, or that I've taught it in 8 weeks. It's ran 8 weeks out online. It was the last one we moved for School of IT. It was the last one of our courses moved from 16 to 8 weeks. So with a bunch of past due homework showing up already, and then we start questioning some of the changes that I made. You know, so I want to have a discussion about that. So those of y'all on Zoom probably might go ahead and unmute your mics, because we're going to discuss that. And I'll get your feedback on what you think we should do and stuff. But it left me questioning some of the changes I made, and might make some changes to the final project and stuff. Y'all have seen it's a little standard in syllabus, right? Of course, it's subject to change. So I think we might need to do that and see where it's at, because there's more past due homework right now than I was expecting. So I want to take a little bit of time and go over homework questions if y'all have those. Do that. And I added some stuff to the final project, which the reasoning for that was so y'all could write, or y'all could get some experience with Spring Framework and add that to your resume. But next week we have a small assignment that will use Spring Framework, so you'll be able to claim for Spring Framework homework assignments. We might be able to maybe go back to what I did last year for the final projects, before people get too far into them. And 99% of the difference between the two is generated code. So it's not going to really make much difference, but it will be less that you have to do. A different organizational structure. We'll talk about that in a few moments. So didn't have to have the API too much. Maybe drop Spring Boot on it, and then we just leave the requirements of just the Java classes, which would make it almost identical to the example we did the other day, except we didn't do anything with generics the other day. Other than that, there was one more requirement with the classes, but we will see plenty of that over the next couple of weeks. And then the JSP page, so instead of that last one we did where we spit it out to the console and type stuff in, we would make one HTML page, which actually that's what I want to do on that project tonight. Just take those files and switch it over to an HTML form so you can see what that's like. and then tie into a MySQL database, which is going to be next week. But as we go through things this evening, it might push what was planned for the lecture tonight back at night. Exceptions and file input output, and push things back for a couple nights. The plan had is the lecture being well ahead of the homework by the end of next week, so there is a little bit of wiggle room. But the next 2 weeks, the homework's going to be hard. I'll just go ahead and say that. There's the next 2 weeks, as we get into next week, we're going to look at databases and a REST API, like connecting to a MySQL database and a REST API, and that's your homework assignments about 5. And then the week after that, your homework assignments are about data structures. So the next 2 weeks is going to be harder homework. So I'm going to take time to kind of go over the homework and make sure everybody's coming this address questions, kind of go over stuff we can turn it in, and look at what the changes would be to the finals, and then we'll discuss it. See what you think. Okay. Oh, I didn't see that pop up in the chat. Like how change it, cut stuff out, or add more, cut stuff out. Yeah, my concern is in the transition from 16 to 8-week classes, so I definitely will not be adding more. It's going to cut stuff. Does that sound better, Janet? In particular, the framework from the final project, which means it'll just be a NetBeans project for your final. It will still be a web application, so it will still do all the electron framework and stuff. There's different ways it can be approached. I just started kind of questioning that, and I at least want to take a moment to make sure everybody gets caught up on past due homework, so we can kind of maybe go through some homework tonight. If you have questions, go through it together as a class. I believe there's at least one assignment that nobody has turned in yet, so that might be a good one to go through together as a class. Things like that. Okay, so let me start by pulling up the instructions for the final as they are. Oh, and let me stop the screen share and quit Teams real quick, because this is a class, so it's pretty common that people who teach day classes starting their evenings might send messages in Teams that have confidential information. Because one of my things today would definitely be fall under HIPAA regulations, so I don't need any Teams messages popping up on the recording. Okay, so we're going on class here. And look at the final project. So this exam, exam project proposal. So the JSP pages, really, we can get by with just one of them. We just need something with an HTML form to get the input. And we can spit the output right back out on the same page. That's not any problem at all. And if you know HTML and CSS, you make it look really nice, but making it look nice is not a requirement for this class. That was the 153 class. We just need the input boxes. So we'll have a couple of classes, like that pizza example the other day, at least one abstract class, an interface. And you can use your interface to make your parent class abstract, like we did with the pizza. Something with generic, and then we put it in there. And what I added, yeah, was stuff with the Spring framework. So I might drop the Spring framework, because that also led into a REST API, but we will see the Spring framework in a small assignment. So that'll be a really easy assignment. Currently, it's scheduled for next week, but if everything's getting pushed back a week, obviously the due dates are going to get pushed back as well. So that might be the week after. But it's going to cut some things out of it. We won't need this. So like using two different syntaxes in that JSP page, we will only need only have to learn one syntax, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier. Yeah, let me show you what it'll be like I said. Let's open the example the other day, or let's update the example from the other day. This is a good example for software development too, because that's a pretty common thing we do, right? We don't start from scratch with every piece of software we write. We have something going, and then extend that. So here was an example from the other day. Maybe close this. On that, we have all our inputs here, which is kind of a lousy input, right? The specialty pizza and Supreme and yeah, and then we get those get that output. It kind of worked, but that's generally not how what we would think of a pizza ordering app, right? Not typing it in there. We want something with an interface we could click on. And that's kind of what the final project's going to be. It's going to be using web stuff for that. So I'm going to start a new one. So instead of that Spring Boot stuff, which we previewed and seeing that framework for your final project, you'll just start a new package. I'm going with Ant, and actually Ant would probably be fine for this because it's going on Tomcat, and the way it deploys on Tomcat, we haven't actually seen it yet, but all of the package and build information is gone before it actually goes to the Tomcat thing. It's all built into one single WAR file is what we call them, WAR. It's like a jar file, which is really a zip folder of compiled code. The equivalent of a .exe file. It's all made into one exe file, and then that's what we put on the server. We are going to see that at some point. So an AMP might be an AMP project will work fine if you just choose Java AMP, a web one, just basic web application. I'm going to call this. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to call this Pizza 2. Sounds like a good one. And then NetBeans remembers that we've already set up the Tomcat server and stuff. So we did that earlier. Has everybody done that at least once on their machine now? You don't have it listed from that champ that you installed, choose Tomcat or hit add and then search for whichever one you want. Probably a Tomcat server. There's multiple options. Then on the next screen, we'd say where it's at. Oh, it is here. Somewhere we have to give it an address to it. I think y'all have already seen that. And we're going to skip the frameworks for now to finish. And this will generate all of that code in the background. Take out everything that's comments here. Got some stuff in the to-do option. And our source code is listed a little bit different in the packaging. So now we have the source package. So here's where all our Java code would go. And that source in source packages like we saw. And there's also a folder called web pages that has meta information and web information, which is a whole bunch of background stuff. We generally don't need to touch those folders. But at the same level as them is where we start putting our web page, our website together, the HTML portion together. So I'm going to copy over all these from source packages here. And we have pizza.py, all of these things. I'm going to copy them down, but the way that means just name them. Right, these other two folders are inside of that first folder, so it's probably easier to come over here and copy them just in File Explorer. We're going to pizza under the source. Here's all the source code. So I'm just going to grab this, copy that over to the Pizza 2 project, and put it in the source code here. I think it's under Java, but you can also just come over here to source packages and hit paste. So that's a useful shortcut. Notice the copy and paste, it's a File Explorer, so we can mix it with our regular File Explorer, no problem whatsoever. So now we have all of those things in here. So we can just import we can just bring those in, and then that one, this one that had all of the stuff about doing things, we'll just put that in a JSP page instead. So this is what the final project will be like, is what I'm thinking. Since, yeah, it's kind of based on, there's more past due homework. We're halfway through the semester now, and there's more past due homework than I was expecting. So I think the load might have been a little heavy, so I'm going to do some stuff to lighten it. And unless you've gone through and read every assignment already, there's going to be some other things to lighten the load. But the only one we've actually talked about so far is the final project. So you probably haven't seen the other things that are going to disappear before we get to them. And I don't think anybody's really worked ahead, have they? I think head shaking no in here, and I feel pretty certain nobody's really looked ahead. So we don't need this HTML page. Yeah, discard the changes there. But instead of HTML page, I'm going to delete that. Yes, delete index.html. And in that folder it was in, the web pages folder there, I'm going to right click and make a new JSP page. I'm going to do the full thing under web. At the top is JSP. On the checkbox is just the JSP standard syntax one. It should be by default. And I'm going to call this index so that the server knows that's our starting point without us going through and doing extra stuff. We can tell this index is just the default starting point. We can tell the server to start somewhere else, but it's usually a lot easier just to name our starting point as index. I'm gonna get rid of the comment because those are just kind of cluttered here. And we've looked at this briefly. Right, we have HTML code intermingled with some other stuff, and we just need a special type of tag to bring things in. So I'm going to open this place order. Remember the other day we had this main class, and all this one did, this is what main classes usually look like, is they jump from that static situation that main has to be into normal object-oriented stuff so that we can get away from static as quickly as possible. Unless it's a situation where we just have to have static. So we don't need a main class here anymore. So I'm going to delete that one. Safely delete. Refactor that. Then all of our logic was here in the place order one. So what I want to do is move this logic over to that JSP page. This is probably what you will do on your final too, right? You'll start with all Java classes and get a whole bunch of debugging done in the console. And then you'll make a new web app project and then come over here and just start putting things together here over here. So I'm not sure if the automatic import works or not. I'm going to go ahead and try it. So it looks like we have a linked list total all of our pizzas, and the price of what the order is going to cost. So to Java code, we put angle bracket percent, kind of like a sum. We're doing a tag, and then a couple lines later, the other half of that tag, and it's like a special tag that our Java code goes inside of. So I'm going to create a linked list. A linked list holding pi. I'll call it pi equals new linked list, which I probably should have just copied and pasted that line, right? Actually, I'm going to go back and copy and paste that line. This first line here, we don't have to say private because we're on a web page, so public and private are different there than they would be in the compiled classes. And instead of typing that, I'm going to paste this in. I should have done that instead of copy and paste, instead of retyping the same line. But we need to import these things. And notice we click on the light bulb, we still get add import for pizza.py.py, so it recognizes the right class. But double click that. Here's what the import looks like. Did that mess up the way it looks like? No, it looks okay. So again, it's that I'm going to start referring to that as the Java tag. So since we're in HTML, we're dealing everything with tags. So when I say Java tag, that means the angle bracket percent sign, the thing where our Java code goes. And you can see it's just, there's a thing at page. So hopefully that's obvious. It applies to the entire page. And hopefully the extension is obvious as well, right? Like we could add element or add website to make it a smaller or larger thing. I've never actually used those except when randomly learning them. Usually we do things like we always do in HTML where we're dealing with the whole web page at once, and only each web page at once. And then this part looks a lot like our import statement. The same words, but it's modified to match an attribute from a markup language. Does that seem obvious to everybody? Or does the transition from Java code like we saw the other day to this seem obvious? And again, I'd use the auto import. Just Control-Shift-I. Control-Shift-I doesn't work, but clicking the light bulb does. You click on the light bulb and you just add the import automatically that way. So it gets our list. Price with the double, we can just say double price starts at 0.0. And our Java code comes right over here. Here's where your stuff changes. So have a scanner to get the input. We don't need that. We don't need the scanner. We'll just use regular, or we'll go HTML form. So I can come down here and take out that default one and put in a form tag. And we'll come back and do the action and attributes on it here in a moment. So what do we need inputs for? Specialty or custom. So I'm gonna oversimplify this and avoid error handling. I'm just gonna do an input and we will just type specialty or custom. Is that okay with everybody? Because otherwise we're gonna get into the weeds of the HTML inputs, which for your final project there will be lots of times to do. A select input would be a lot better where we have a drop down menu and can choose. But I'm just gonna sort of abbreviate it, and we will be careful when we when we input our values. The general concept should make sense. So our prompt goes right here: specialty or custom pizza, and then we'll add an input. Type equals text. And notice that predictive text box is coming up all over the place. It does that a lot in HTML. It's pretty common over the years. I've kind of developed the habit of entering the HTML code backwards in something that has predictive text because those boxes are just constantly in the way. The predictive text is just constantly in the way. Input is text, and this is going to be sent to a server. So y'all remember, everybody's had the SDEV class, right? All of you but one person had it with me, and I'm pretty sure she said she's had it. So remember how we have the class is usually used with the CSS. It's not a restriction. We also have ID. ID is most often used with the client-side scripting, JavaScript, most often. JavaScript is the official rule on what it's supposed to be. Obviously, we can type, we can code, write code. There's more languages in the world. But we also have a name attribute. And whenever we send things to a server, the name attribute is how the server will recognize it. It goes to the server as a key value pair, and the name attribute is the key. So a lot of times we'll do both. So it's pretty common to have both name and ID equal the same thing. So here name equals specialty. Actually, this would probably be a checkbox would be easy here, wouldn't it? Check for specialty or uncheck for custom pizza is our prompt. Specialty, and then instead of text, we'll make it a checkbox. Checkbox or check button? Anybody remember off the top of their head? It's checkbox. Okay. All the similarities in languages sometimes get worse as you learn more and more because it seems like everybody that wrote a programming language called checkboxes something different. Checkboxes, check buttons, check marks, all sorts of stuff. But the name is the key. And then in this case, true or false would be the value that gets sent to the server as a key value pair. And it's pretty common to do things like this. So the name is for the server side script, and the ID is for the client side script, and they won't intermingle with each other, so there's no trouble giving them both the same name. Or another way to say that is they only look the same to you. To a machine, they look very different in the variable for line breaking. They can make that look a little bit better, but yes. Everybody see what's going on there? Should be fairly straightforward. Okay, let's go a little bit quicker on this. So after we got specialty of that, choose Hawaiian or actually we could do a radio button here, couldn't we? I probably shouldn't think too much about the form, or I should have thought about it beforehand. Specialty, give specialty, which one? And we only have two in this case, so input type equals radio. Name is about SP Hawaiian. Wait. Sorry, I have to think about the names. We just need a form. I'm going back to words. Because this is gonna get too confusing if I start thinking about it. So let's go back to just text input. And the name on this one is pizza type as one word. Specialty or custom pizza. Sorry, that's what I was gonna do at first. I probably shouldn't have drifted away from the little thoughts because it's gonna get confusing, especially which one, type text, and this will be specialty. And our options for specialty are going to be Hawaiian or Supreme. So not going to be a very good form here, but starting to customize the form will eat up a lot of class time that we need to do other stuff with. I only wanted to go till about the break on this, and then after the break, we will basically go through a bunch of y'all's homework and try to get caught up on that. Hopefully y'all will find that useful. What else do we have? I guess that would give us enough to get started with, to start processing this somewhere. The buys, the price is ordered. Actually, I'm gonna come over here and comment this out for now. I just realized we could probably do something better. Instead of copying everything over, there's at least two things, and let's just finish up the form here. Everybody's seen HTML before, you know what to do on a form, right? So our input type equals submit, value equals place order in this case, and I'm just going to skip the reset button. Should probably be a reset button. Should probably be a whole lot more stuff in that form, right? We should probably have radio buttons and check boxes, and you all know what would be involved in a pizza order or anything. Drop down menus. We just have two options. So basically, we can type in the word specialty, and then type in the word Hawaiian or Supreme, or if custom, which one topping do you want? And we will abbreviate this by just doing a single topping custom pizza. Type equals text. And again, the name is what gets sent to the server. Name is topping. So there's sort of the minimum amount we need on this form to get our values from here to that code we had the other day. I'm going to ignore the typos and stuff. You all know what those words are supposed to be. And now the one that we could never do in the SDEV 153 class, right? Our action attribute, which is what do we do when the submit button is clicked, and our method attribute. For the most part, you're pretty much always going to use get and post to get a form from the form to the server. From the server back to the client, there's some others, we'll use some other ones more often, but from the web page to the server, it's almost always get or post. And at least for this point, think of the difference between them is get will show in the address bar. It'll be tacked onto the URL, and post is in the background. So obviously we probably want to see the stuff when we're debugging it. So generally you'll start with get, and then after everything's done, then switch it to post so it doesn't show in the address bar. And our action is the script that we want to run when we submit this form. I'm gonna do is, I'll call it receipt. Whoops. Receipt.jsp. So that'll, we'll submit the form and then we'll do all our processing in the receipt. That's why I commented those things out earlier. You know, probably don't need them. So I guess this really could have been an HTML page. We're not actually doing anything here, any stuff here, but we'll make another web page now. So I'm going to select the correct folder and hit the new button, make another JSP page, and call this receipt ep.jsp, just the standard one. Finish that, it'll generate all this stuff for us. And this is where we should probably be doing that processing. So I'm going to add in the Java tag, come down a couple lines, finish that tag, and then basically I want to do all of this stuff. All of that. Clear, paste it in, and then figure out what to get rid of. So it doesn't have to be private. Double, so I'll keep that like it is. Decimal format. Need to do some imports here. Add the import for that. Add the import for that. Everybody following along, keeping up okay? I see head nods in the class. Nobody on the Zoom call saying anything. For the second half of the class, I will be asking for conversation a little more. So we're gonna talk about stuff. So here's our place order. I'm gonna take out the method header and we're just gonna run it here when this page opens, right? It's right at the top of the page, so that's gonna be the first bit of code that runs. So I'll take that out and come way down here, take out the curly brace that did close that off. Well, the scanner, we don't need a scanner, we're getting our input from somewhere else. Calling it user input is going to be a problem though. We have several types of input coming in. This is the big one. So from this input box, we have some user input called pizza type. Already copied that up. So pizza type is request dot get parameter. Okay, sorry. So sorry, I tried to type in the capital R and do everything else. So request, right? A client makes a request to the server. In our case, the request we're making to the server is the action here. So when we click the submit button, we're going to request that the server runs receipt.jsp. I think 2 people asked me questions about why I said 2 pages in the thing, and that's why it's a little bit easier. We have 1 page for our inputs, which probably could be just purely HTML. And then we send that over to a JSP page and request.get parameter, which that color is hard to see. Let me add a string in. There should be a string, which is a key value pair. So we had pizza type, I think. Yes. So we should have a string coming in called pizza type. The browser will remove case sensitivity from it, so your browser will send it in all lowercase letters. That's why I just typed it up in all lowercase letters to begin with. But for Java, the Java portion, I'm going to go ahead and switch it to camel case. Then we have some other strings, right? What other ones do we have? We have string or specialty, which is either going to be Hawaiian or Supreme. So a radio button would have been way better there. Specialty equals request dot get parameter. Frankly, a semicolon. I have a semicolon there. Okay. I just hit save and that error went away. I don't know why it was still saying it was waiting on a semicolon. I guess NetBeans was just a second or two behind. And then we have a topping input. String topping is the request we made to the server came in with some parameters. So we'll say get parameter topping. And make sure you spell parameter correctly. Does that seem easy? Any feedback from those on Zoom? Feel free to put something in the chat. Or unmute. That's all. That's what it takes to get our parameters from the code and or from the HTML page or from the JSP page. Sorry, took a bunch of tries to get that sentence correct. So that's what it takes to get our code from the JSP page, and it is going across the internet, which hopefully you've heard before or were already familiar with. We only transfer Unicode across the internet, so anything that comes across the internet is coming in as a string. So if you're expecting integers or floating point numbers or anything like that, remember it's going to come in as a string and you have to cast it into the type. But scanner does the same thing, so you should be kind of used to that in your Java code anyway. Our inputs usually come in as strings, and it matches with that. So we have our loop, which I'm not really going to do the loop. So I'm going to take the loop out because we're just going to order one pizza in this case. To keep this example somewhat short, where's the loop in? There we go. Don't need that prompt. I should go nice and slow so everybody can follow. We'll import those things in a moment. Looks like a bunch of inputs, bunch of inputs, bunch of inputs. The prompts are all on our form. We already have all of them. Do you want specialty or custom? So this is going to be our pizza type. So then we brought that into user input, but we already have this in here. So pizza type equals that word, and then we can get rid of our prompt here. See how I'm just cutting things out from what we tested and debugged already? Haven't really added anything. We had these, but they were coming from the console. So I just moved them all to the top, gave them better names, but we did have 3 inputs already. So it's not a new thing. On the next one, it looks like our input is Hawaiian or specialty. So in that case, then we'll check what's in the variable called specialty. If it equals Hawaiian, it'll be Hawaiian. I guess we want to add this in explicitly. Specialty dot equals Supreme. And that way our else does something else. But I'm going to write it as an else if specialty dot equals an empty string that we are. So this is really the else block. I just kind of wrote it with an else if so you can see what the other option coming in is. If we don't type Hawaiian or Supreme, we're probably going to leave that box blank, which means it's going to come in as an empty string. That's our options. Why is some of that target? I think I might need to import stuff. So let's hit the import on this, add the import for that, add the import for crust. There's parentheses, that's why it's right. Add the missing parentheses, import the Supreme. So this is kind of what the final project is going to back off to. Does this sound better to you all? It's going to cut a couple of requirements out, but you'll debug it like we did the stuff in class the other day. Curly braces here, so get rid of that. First, can I have extra curly braces now? A legal start of type Y. If I don't know why it's trying to indent weird. I'm going to put an else in there because NetBeans doesn't like that. It would be fine to the way this curly braces was, but for this, we asked for what toppings, and we asked for that in our forms. We already had that in. I'll make a message string out message. That sounds like a good name for it. Out message equals sorry, we're out of that topping. You can have green peppers. Because if you all remember the other day, we were running very short on time, so we only did one topping, but to add all the other toppings would be exactly this, basically the same as this. We could just add an if else. If, and we named it topping not equals green pepper. And I'm going to make it all lowercase. The browser will change it to all lowercase. That's why I'm doing that. Close that, but I don't know why it's doing weird indenting. We'll just go ahead and put green peppers on there. Import those. Already got that. We kind of only gave them the option for deep dish at this time, and then we add it to our pies. Then we get down here and we need to increment the price. Like local variables are initial limit must be final or effectively final. Is it cost here? I'm going to switch this to another type, the other type of for loop. For and I equals 0, I is less than pies dot size, I plus plus, and then we'll say price plus equals p. Pies dot it index I dot total. There's only one in this case. Everybody okay with that? I just did it instead of lambda expression. And it has to do with observables, and we aren't quite ready to talk about it. We aren't quite ready to talk about anything observable yet. I didn't tell it so I didn't tell it there would be anything in here it needed to watch the code of. It needed to keep an eye on. And then instead of the output, we'll just print stuff out. So I'll do the same thing. So for a regular for loop, I is less than pi's dot size. And we have multiple ways we can write for loops. We've seen that, right? I did that. For each time we will print it. Actually, that lambda statement would work, wouldn't it? I'm gonna leave that lambda in there. This. Then we need to print out total and print that on the page, which this is what goes back to the user, right? So I'm going to intermingle that in the HTML code so that we can make that output look nice. So I'm going to end out of that coding part. And now we still have access to pi's. So in the paragraph, say, so that's going to be, and then we'll do one of those Java tags with an equal sign. Oops. Let me erase that. The Java tag, so angle bracket percent equals, and then we can put in our variable. Array list have a default print, so it's just going to print out the default array list from that. Nothing too fancy there. And make this a paragraph for a total of, in that paragraph, in that paragraph. And here, instead of concatenated in it into the sentence, we want to put that in one of those Java tags. I'm going to do that up here then. I'm going to make a string called total price equals the formatted version of this. And then in the tag down here intermingled, I'm just going to put total price. It didn't like what I tried to do at first. Why is it not like that? There's most definitely a semicolon there. Oh, there's an extra parenthesis. And it said price. I don't need this dot price. Any questions about that? Does that make sense what we did? The logic all worked. So all we did was move the processing over here, put our prompts over here with the input form. And when we hit the submit button, it's going to call this other JSP page as that processing that we tested the other day. And basically what we did is we cut the prompts out, deleted all the prompts, did a little bit of cleanup. You might have to stare at it for a minute, make sure you can make sense of what's going on there. But we put all of our code over here and then the output here. If I run that, we should see something that looks a little bit better. Yeah, and it still remembers from last time I signed into Jamp from NetBeans. Run that and we get our pizza. So if I say custom, leave that one blank and type in green pepper, it should, here's our total. Oh. So error messages, you'll see are a lot like what we're used to seeing. An error occurred at line 29. System.out.println doesn't mean anything to the browser. Right, that's for our console, but it doesn't mean anything to the browser. So we close that, stop that previous run. Find line 29, that's probably not the only place it was in there. So, take up that line. Looks like there's another one here. I don't see any other system.out.print lines. So we'll give that a try. Custom pizza with green pepper. Uh-oh. Oh, apparently overlooked one. Line 38. Did I not just scroll through there twice? I thought I scrolled down and then back up, but yeah. Okay. Now I think all the print lines are out of there, so I'll stop the previous run. I'm going to close everything here just to make sure it's all stopped. And remember, it shows down at the bottom in the status bar. It'll tell us if it's running. Hit run again. Custom with green peppers and place order. Index error. Insert a curly brace to complete a block. So it's not sure where, but it's missing a curly brace somewhere. So what do we have? Here's an opening. Here's an opening one, which should close there. And then this one. Oh, that one apparently doesn't close. We can check all the others. So that one closes there. That one closes there. 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 All right, check that one. That one closes there. So it looks like all the other curly braces come in pairs like they're supposed to. Close that. Doesn't look like it's running, so I'll hit run again. Then we're back to normal debugging, right? Y'all know this process. So that's going to be this for a total of something. So somehow our logic got off. Which I think what happened was right here. If it's specialty, then should jump into else, get a custom by. Oh, whoops. I mean, if not topping dot equals green pepper. If it's not green pepper, then we add green peppers. That's the only thing we add. So if it is green pepper, we want to jump to this part. And I did this the error message on the negate. Does the logic make sense there? Instead of saying, if it's pepperoni, or if it's onion, or if it's mushroom, or if it's sausage, and go into or on the whole list of things we have, just say not green pepper. That's a much easier way to say, much shorter way to say the same thing in this situation. Then we can check that. Then we can put that in an if block here. So if out message dot equals an empty string, then we'll set the total price to this. Actually, I need to create that earlier, don't I? I'm going to copy that and create that at global scale. So out message starts as an empty string. Then we come down here. If they ask for one of the toppings we're out of, we'll put this message in it. Otherwise, we'll give them a pizza with green peppers. Then we'll calculate the price. And if out message is blank instead of total price, I'm just going to make that out message. We'll say out message is the price. And then we'll feed out message. Oh, actually, that's going to be confusing, isn't it? If that's blank, we'll set total price. Maybe there's a better way to do that. I'm gonna set total price no matter what. And then I'm going to come down here and just print that out message. Sorry, I didn't plan to lecture ahead like I normally do. I usually like to do that at least once. So there's a lot of back and forth tonight. Hopefully the general idea is making sense here. If our message is blank, nothing's going to print there. If it's that way, we don't have to check if it's an empty string. If it's an empty string, there's just a blank spot on the web page. We won't ever see it. Otherwise, we'll say we're out of green peppers. You can have one with green peppers and something like that. Sorry, I went back and forth a couple times. This will be up on GitHub so you can look at it. So we could order like a custom pizza with green peppers, and I had intended to be finished with this about a moment ago. Okay, so that worked, right? Going to be a deep dish, with green peppers for 1605. Definitely needs some formatting there, but that we'll see some of that later. And the total price there. What if I ask for pepperoni here? This is that last thing that I just went back and forth a lot on the changes. So let's say pepperoni. Ask for that. Where are that? You can have green peppers, and then nothing got ordered. That's kind of a good fallback, right? It does not have to be perfect in the classroom, right? We're in tight time constraints. So if your fallback is something like that, that is perfectly acceptable. It doesn't have to be polished industry level here, right? We're looking at the logic and the basic practice of Java syntax. You could also leave this one blank and type in specialty with Hawaiian. And we get a Hawaiian pizza and the price of our Hawaiian pizza. See how most of that was done the other day? We had it debugged from just testing in the console where it's quick and easy, and then copied it over to the JSD page. That's kind of what I had in mind for the final. Does that seem reasonable? That seem, does that seem, does that make your ideas seem better? If we drop the spring boot stuff and we don't do any of the fancy spring boot, we just do what we just did on Tuesday's example and then the first hour of class tonight. Any comments from the Zoom call? Does that look?
I think it'll fall into place when I'm more hands-on into it, but yeah, it is making sense.
Okay, yeah, that's actually what I did last year, and it was still 16-week class. Okay, yeah, so yes, in the chat room, it was still a 16-week class, so people were getting bored. And then we'll have a database. So like in this case, we would probably have the prices in the database. And that way we can change them dynamically as the cost of produce goes up and down around the year. Sale, put things on sale and we just change it in the MySQL database and then the software works the same. But that is really, really easy. We will see that everything's getting pushed back a night. So we'll probably see that the first night of week 6. It was supposed to be next Thursday, but it looks like everything's gonna be pushed back a night. Because I will adjust those instructions. Okay, see some yeses and agreement in the chat room, so that's good. Other stuff in this chat room. Remember, if you send me a direct message, oh, looks like those are just public. Direct messages, remember to send them to my laptop, whichever one I'm on. It's PC tonight, but the one that says Chris instead of my whole full name, thing actually go by instead of what the name that actually obviously came from the database. So that's what's expected for your project, and see how we don't need the rest of the website about our pizza place. Right? We don't need the marketing, advertising pages, the stuff that makes it look really nice. We just need the order form because that's the part we're going to process in Java. Oh wait, did I miss the message? Oh, okay, I don't see that last message, Jenna. But that is what we're going over. I want to actually have a discussion with that. So like after the break, you all unmute the microphones and we'll talk about some of the homework assignments. The way I'm usually up here typing code and talking, like you all to do the talking part, and I'll type the code and then put some assignments and stuff as we go through them, or kind of work through them together. And then the exception handling and file in and out can be pushed back to next week because the next couple weeks the homework's going to be a little bit more difficult. The exception handling and filing out homework is a really easy one. Not a lot to that. But then we have a REST API homework, integrate with the MySQL database homework, which obviously in the real world we would integrate with the MySQL database to send our REST API, but for us it's two separate assignments. Just looking at the pieces here. Then we're getting into data structures. And the next couple of weeks, most of the homework is going to be a little bit harder. So I want to make sure we're caught up on homework. So during the break, think about what assignments you would like to start going over. So I don't know if we can go over all of them in class, but we'll go over a couple of them. Otherwise, 10 minutes sound good to everybody? My laptop says 7:11, so we'll get back to it at 7:21. See you in just a moment.